Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. This is a place for you to learn a lot of new things, get a lot of new information on, and grow your knowledge base. So, if you're someone who's interested in listening to discussions, reviews, then this is the channel for you. And I hope that you enjoy our today's discussion. So, now moving towards the discussion video.
Point or similar points, but we might have taken completely different routes to it.
Yeah, the only thing I can derive from the whole process, like how somebody might like outside from our fraternity would think it's very different, is because in architecture we got to know that it's like we can solve any problem given like enough time and a process to solve it, because you can't solve a lot of problems at the same time, so you have to put your time
Yeah.
to it. So that's why after after 5 years of graduating, we have put other like last 5 years in some other thing, right? That is
Yeah.
from was branching out for the same time. But we can't do, like, for example, like jumping away from one like discipline to the other discipline is not the case here. It's all interdisciplinary, right?
For
If you're
sure.
saying something, I like there in architecture, when we were talking about slightly about sustainability, how people are using the word or the term so irresponsibly, like a jargon. Mostly
True.
it's all jargon when we don't understand it, right? And for some people, right, for some people, if you use the word sustainability and they just get overwhelmed with the word or the terminology itself. But when you start explaining it, it's common sense. It's like sustainability is not something
Yeah.
like only a few privileged would know, or like it's a very heavy term where you don't know how to be sustainable yourself, like individual sustainability or all over the globe. And with architecture I got to know ki, yeah, like there are situations in architecture when you see there are doors closing on you because you don't have enough things, right? Because somebody, like, when we joined architecture, it was like in the second, I think in the second renaissance of architecture itself, where we're using softwares and like developing high CGI graphics and other stuff for each of our individual projects, right? We were so involved in it. But now when we see, like, why are we building a building, right? That's also a question,
Yeah.
right? It's not only about, yeah, it's not
Yeah.
only about the
Yeah.
aesthetics or just suit a client and all. We are very much affiliated with the idea ki why are we doing particularly this thing where I could have been doing something else at the same time, right? that's that why is very important for me also, I think, every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I
think
think
I
that's
think
a very
and
you
you.
also
beautiful
have that why for you also, right?
continue. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I didn't
So I
catch
think
the last part.
like he raised a quite an interesting point in this as to why are we building this building, right? Because I
Hmm.
think now I think all of us would agree that we have sort of come to that realization that maybe the solution to the problem is always like it's not always building something. Maybe removing or deconstructing might also be a solution, and that's also a part of
Yeah.
architecture. Just because we are not building and instead removing or demolishing doesn't mean that it's not a part of problem solving. It's not a part of architecture.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
even like I have become really interested in working with the existing building stock, for example. Like,
Yeah.
why do you have to build new buildings or demolish
Mm.
them or whatever?
Oh yeah, or even like
I like,
building in such a way that later it can serve many purposes, or the materials
Yeah.
can be repurposed, upcycled,
Exactly.
whatever.
So
So
you look
before
into the
building,
future.
yeah.
Yeah, that
I would
question
actually
actually.
like to just one second. I'll just
Yes,
continue.
yeah.
Before we move to the next point, I'll continue with what you mentioned this one about why do we need to build something, or what, like, it's sort of like a self introspection question. And coming from the sociology background, I have studied something called urban sociology, which has a lot to do with cities and the social part of it. And I remember a major part of that course is about the infrastructure in the city and how basically the city life and the structures around it, like, it's sort of complementary to each other. And over there, what I studied was from a very theoretical point of view. It's not very practical. It's not something which is very, natural science based. It's more social and it's very subjective. But when I, of course, again going back to my first point, when I would think about your course, I would always think about it as a natural science course, something which has a very practical side of it. Like you are building or designing something, or you're making something for a very practical use. That if this space can this space be used easily by the public or by the person who is wanting to build that structure. But now listening to all of you, I realized that there is a subjective part of the whole course as well, and there is a part of it which is towards theory. Like I did not know that studying colonial architecture can also be a part of your course, or the design, or how you're mentioning that technology and the kind of buildings that are coming up today, that can be studied before you actually go ahead to build something. And that's what I'll also request you to, if you can point it out, that what is the subjective or theoretical part of your course, because uh, till now I really thought about it as a very practical natural science thing, like something which did not have a lot of theory in it. Because as far as I know, even your exams and all that you had, like mostly based on drawing, or designing something, or something which is very practical, like a presentation. If I'm not wrong, you can correct me. I don't know if you had like very theoretical, heavy theory part to your course. So
I could maybe start
Yeah.
just
yeah,
by saying that, I mean, sure, we build buildings, but I think a big thing we do is build experiences for people in space. And to build experiences, you have to understand how they think, what they might want to do. So there is a large part of like research we have to do. And I do believe actually we should have more collaboration with socialists or psychologists or biologists if the building is for them and these things. But we have to do a lot of research to know to build these experiences. So I think, yeah, theory is a big part. And we did have some theoretical concepts in undergrad. They weren't stressed on enough, but yeah, they then like needed for foundation of what we want to do and how we do things. Yeah.
No, I agree with that. It may be true that the education system in certain countries would not focus too much on the research aspect of architecture and it was taught a certain way, but that doesn't become true for architecture in general.
Yeah.
Uh, like we, I think most of us got into our research interests later. Uh, right? That's true, right?
Yeah.
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 Mm.
Yeah.
But like I
In the
agree with
beginning,
what
I was just thinking it is just a hefty process, at least for me.
Yeah,
Mm.
exactly. No, I agree with Vasudha. The way I see architecture is also, I think we occupy a space for anything we do in life. And that for me is architecture. Like for me as an architect personally, it's important for me to think about the space, but also the nature of activity taking place
Mm.
in space and what that means from different aspects. And even like when you were asking about studying colonial histories in the bigger picture, for me, it's very interesting to look at where we've come from in order to be where we are in terms of how developed we are, how we build, how people use and interact with the spaces that we're creating. And that's been quite a ride, but yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
see, I was thinking like this thing was going in my mind while you guys were explaining ki how theoretical and it could like it is there is a like different idea about architecture. I think outside, even in the fraternity, like people who have a general idea about architecture, they think it's a professional course like the other professional courses. But like when you sort of go into architecture and you realize research or theory comes natural to it.
Mm.
Because without it you can't really do anything very conscious, right? Because you can actually get away with it without doing the theory and research as well, because it's just it's
Yeah.
common sense, in other terms, like how to fix a building. Every other person thinks like they can make their building and they don't need an architect. That's a general idea also. But when you realize a person is spending their time I can just tell you this by an example. Like for example, in my home I got around 100 kg of just plastic, right? And now the problem was my architect mind thought like it's just a material, we can use it. Uh, but the whole idea is you have to put your time to it, and you have to rationalize it, and you have to. Then also realize I need to research a lot about waste management, how I can actually, because this is generating daily. So, and all these things were only given to me by the curriculum itself. Yeah, the curriculum probably was not in like it was not emphasized that you have to do a well researched document. It was just a thing that was supposed to be attached to the main idea, right? So that was mostly it in like theory.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I might have like a vested stake in this probably because I am also like on both sides of the coin right now. So as an educator, I would say that I do sort of see the kind of, I mean, I won't exactly say shortcomings, but the areas that could have been emphasized when we were doing our undergraduate, right? And the sort of like, as you say, like the syllabus, I think needs a bit more tweak. There needs to be a bit more theory. Also because it's the same as what Shruti was saying. I think when we went into undergrad, we also don't really have an idea that, okay, that like we need to read, right? Like we read as because we had an interest in it, but it was never sort of stressed upon that we need to read to be able to know the subject, right? It was more in terms of that, okay, so you need to read the guidelines, you need to know the bylaws, and you need to read the technical aspect of it, right?
Right.
The manuals, those things, but the theoretical
At
aspect
least
I don't think was
the
stressed upon
bylaws here
enough.
are mandatory, right? The bylaws are
Yeah,
mandatory at least.
yeah, that's the thing. So that but at the same time, I think for me as well, my research interests were sort of aligned or more. I would say actually my research interest branched out when I went for my postgraduate, and I don't think that was more to do with the institute itself, but more to do with just looking at like other forms of architecture than what I've been looking at or grown up seeing, right? And I think though that coupled with the fact that to give a very simple example, and I think it's Sanobar will probably relate to it because it has a colonial like touch to it as well. So I went for my postgraduate. I went to London, right? And before London, I had been to Kolkata, right? And so when I landed in London and looked at those colonial buildings, my first thought wasn't that okay, this is something that I've read about. My first thought was okay, this is something I've seen back in Kolkata. The
Yeah.
reason being that I was exposed to it first at a place which is like removed from it, and that sort of brings back that colonial history, right? That why is reading about history important? Because not because we sort of need to learn from our mistakes or all that. That sure is important, but also because it sort of gives a context to whatever we are seeing around us, right?
Mm.
We don't really need to follow any footsteps particularly, but if we don't know what the footsteps are, then we can't even create our own.
If you enjoyed the video, kindly press on the like button to show us your appreciation. And if you want to share with us your views, you can write it down in the comment section. I hope you enjoyed today's discussion, and now we will meet in the next video.